We are autistic. When we were kids, we couldn't speak. In this world that was not made for us, art is how we thrive.
Hello, my name is ManMan, and I use they them pronouns.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
And we are both neurodivergent artists. So this is our very first video, yay! And as you can see, like we're still kind of figuring out what are we doing. So we decided to do this series of recordings to share our journey as we discover our neurodivergence and how our artistic career have been a big part of helping us to heal and cope. So, Carrie, why don't you get us started with let's go back to how we actually started talking about all this.
Yeah. So, excuse me. I feel like a lot of people have similar stories of like discovering things about themselves or learning new skills during COVID because we all had more time and we were all slowing down. And my story actually starts in the same way. I had COVID in March of 2020, so very early on, and I was living in Japan at the time. Um, I had pretty strong symptoms, and uh, essentially the plan at that time was if you are feeling unwell and you don't think you need to be hospitalized, you just stay home and essentially do your best to stay home. And so I found myself pretty much laying in bed all day, every day, with very little energy. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, I should be writing, or I should be doing something productive with this downtime, but I didn't have any energy even to write. So instead I started thinking, and I realized, I think up to that point in my life, that I experienced things a little bit differently than most people in my immediate surroundings. And I had a lot of conversations as I started to grow out of childhood, with other adults who would say, oh, I was really shy as a kid, or I didn't talk when I was a kid. And I would be like, oh, that was me too. Like, I didn't talk either. And I often felt like getting deep into that conversation, that what they experienced was really what most people think of as shyness. And what I experienced was something much more extreme. I did not speak at all to anyone outside of my immediate family for, I would say, probably at least until 6th or 7th grade. And when I got to be that age, I would try, but it's a very difficult thing to break out of, which you and I will get into, I think, over the span of a few videos. But there's a lot of what happened during those years when I couldn't talk sort of shaped how I experience the world and how I understand the world. And as part of that process, I also needed to find my own special way to interact with the world and to express myself. And that's how I came to start dancing very early on in my life. I'm kind of going a little bit on a tangent, but just to circle back to where I started, I started getting more curious about what it was exactly that was different about my experience as a kid. And once I had enough energy to get out of bed, I was at my computer. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just Google this. What is it called when a kid can't talk? And I like literally put that phrase into the computer, and it said selective mutism. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I read the definition, and it essentially said, selective mutism is a debilitating anxiety disorder where children cannot speak in certain situations. And I was like, oh, that is me. And that was the beginning of my discovery of one of the many ways I am neurodivergent.
Yeah, I still remember, yes, during 2020, that's when we reconnected because we know each other for more than 10 years now, and we have period of times of work really closely as taiko performers, as dancers and teachers. And I remember during 2020 we reconnected because COVID, and you told me, hey, guess what I found? And I remember many years ago we talked a little bit about this, that our shared experience in our childhood. I mean, and but then in 2020 is the time that we started really taking a deeper dive into that. And I also really remember that because 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement gaining more tractions, and that actually at the same time processing of our own experience with selective mutism, or I prefer the word situational mutism, and also unpacking what does, race, like both of us are like marginalized gender and marginalized racial identity that has put a very different light on how we unpack what happened when, like, how we grew up. And honestly, I actually don't remember how I grew out of that. And I remember realizing, oh wow, we only think about children, like, but me and you still live with situational mutism. We just learn to cover it, learn to cope and mask in different ways. And yeah, there's just so much. So we're gonna take a breath with this video.
You, maybe.
and we are actually gonna, once we take a breath and coming back, we're gonna go into a deeper conversation about this topic. And so go go into the description box of this video to find more information to see the next part of where we take a deeper dive in this conversation.
Thank you.